I was like 10 when I stopped believing in Christianity and began considering myself an atheist. But by this point, I started getting in more trouble with the law again. And now I'm grown. I'm not a minor anymore. So I end up getting arrested the first time for robbery in the second degree, which is basically robbery without a weapon, at a Wells Fargo at a bank. And this shocked me actually because I was not expecting this to happen, but they actually ended up letting me out the next day for free. I didn't have to pay a bond. They let me out on a PR bond. So it's like basically just you promise to come back to court. You don't have to put any money up. And then while I was out on bond for the first one, I ended up getting arrested again for an armed robbery, a robbery in the first degree while I was out on bond. So clearly, obviously, they don't let me out this time. Like they set my bail at like 50,000. And then I actually ended up catching an attempted escape charge, and then they raised my bail from 50,000 to 65,000. So I'm in there. I was in the hole, which is like, for those who don't know, it's basically isolation. It's on 23-1. So you come out of your cell 1 hour a day, and the other 23 hours you're in your cell by yourself. And so basically at this point, this is like the lowest point of my life, and I'm only 18 years old, and I'm in jail facing multiple felonies. Excuse me. And this is when I decided, I was like, I can't do this by myself. I'm 2,000 miles away from anyone. From any of my family, pretty much. And so I decided that I'm like, okay, I have no other choice. There's nothing else I can do. It won't hurt me to pray. But instead of going back to my Christian understanding, which I had already decided was not true based on the evidences that I had seen myself, it felt pointless to do that because I had already made my mind up that it's not true. So I don't know much about Islam at this point, but what I do know is that I haven't concluded that it's false. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try this. So all I knew at this point was in Islam, God is called Allah. At least from the United States, we pray facing east. I said this before in public, and I had a whole bunch of people trying to say, no, it's north, no, it's west. It depends on where you're at. But from here, it's east, more specifically northeast. But I asked the CO actually which direction east was. And I just got on my knees and I asked, I was like, if you're there, I need you right now. I need help. I can't do this on my own. I don't have any family. I don't have any money on my books or anything like that. And not only that, but I was also going through withdrawals because I began having some addiction problems. I don't really want to say exactly what substance it was. It starts with an F. I'm sure that's enough for everybody to pretty much put it together. So I prayed, I asked for help. And as soon as I got done making this dua, one of the COs came to my cell and they called me to the window. So they told me to come up to the window. So I came up to the window and it was a nurse and she asked me to lift my shirt up. So I lifted my shirt up and she was like, okay, that's exactly what I thought. I'll be right back. So she comes back maybe 10, 15 minutes later. She's got a scale and she slides the scale under the door. She told me to step on it. At this point, I didn't even know how much I weighed. So I stepped on it and it said 130 pounds and I was even shocked myself. I didn't know that I'd lost that much weight. And so she was like, yeah, this ain't gonna work. We're gonna have to get him some more food. So that right there was basically what it was. I don't want to say this is the moment that I became 100% certain that Islam was the truth, but it was enough for me to stay invested pretty much. So, and also for context, it's very difficult to get extra food in the jail I was in. If you know anyone, I don't know if you know much about it, but they don't just give you that. So they started giving me basically at every meal, the average inmate gets one tray for breakfast, one for lunch, and one for dinner. They started giving me two for every meal. And then at lunch and dinner, they would also give me a little brown bag with like a peanut butter sandwich and milk in it. So that was the beginning. And then from there, once I finally got into general population and was actually around other inmates, because when you get locked up on violent charges, automatically you're in the hole for 2 weeks at least. And then with my attempted escape charge, I was also on security alert for a while. So I ended up being in a hole for about 2 months roughly. But then when they finally allowed me to go to general population, they had this book bin. It was like a little, like a tote, like a plastic one. And it just had a whole bunch of books from the library in it. So I'd already read the Quran at this point. I'd already asked for it from the chaplain when I was in the hole. And I'd already read it, the English translation of it. It was the little blue one. It's little, like real little. You probably know which one I'm talking about. But I read that, and it made a lot more sense to me than the Bible did. I don't know if many people know this, but the Bible actually has contradictions on the very first page, and the Quran has none. In the entire book, there is none. So there was nothing in there that immediately jumped out at me as like, this doesn't make sense or this can't be true because it also says this. There was nothing like that in there. So I was like, okay. In my head, I'm like, the first time I prayed and directed my prayer at the God of this religion, which I now know to be the only true God there is, it was answered for me in some way. It was answered in some form, and it was actually answered very quickly. Like I said, it was 10, 15 minutes. The nurse came to my cell. Then when I get into the general population unit, they had the little bin with the library books in it. And at this point, I don't know any hadith. All I know is the Quran, the English version. That's it. There was a book in there, and it was called like New Muslim Guide or something like that. And it tells you, it lays everything, gives you basically all the basics you need to get started in Islam. It shows you, it's got pictures and everything. It shows you how to make salah step by step. It's got some hadith in there. It talks about dress code. It talks about the foods that we're allowed to have and what we're not allowed to have. It talks all these things. And so that was when I really feel like I made the decision, like, okay, I'm going to step into this like for real now and take it seriously, because it shows you, it basically also tells you how to take your shahada. So I ended up saying the shahada right there by myself in my cell that I was in. So I'm basically practicing Islam by myself in there this entire time, because there are other Muslims in the jail, but they're very few. And it became an issue for me because when I first got into this general population unit, and this is when I also learned that the jail was actually like, the inmates enforced this. Obviously, it's unconstitutional for the jail itself to make rules like this, but the inmates had this like racial dynamic going on where they, white people sit over here, black people sit over there, Hispanics sit over here. So I get in the jail, or excuse me, I get into the general population unit, and a Samoan walks up to me, and he asked me, he's like, who do you know in here? Or who do you roll with? Something like that. And I didn't even understand the question. I was like, nobody. I'm by myself. He was like, is this your first time being locked up? I was like, yeah. And he was like, he asked me, was I Native American, actually, because in Washington, there's a lot of Native Americans. Well, there's really not a lot anywhere, but relatively more than most other places. He asked me, was I Native, which I'm not. And he was like, well, you don't walk like a white boy, you don't talk like one, and there's also only 3 other ones in here. He was like, do you want to join API, which stands for Asian Pacific Islander? And the way I'm seeing it, I was like, well, I don't really know nobody in here. I guess this could help me in some way. I could benefit from this. So I told him, sure. I was like, no problem. And he was like, all right, give me 24 hours. Let me go do my homework on you, and I'm going to get back to you. He comes back to me 48, like 2 days later, not 24 hours, 2 days later. And he told me that, well, first he asked me to show him my charges to make sure there's nothing, no weird charges. And obviously there wasn't. And then he was like, okay, charges look good. You don't got nothing weird. And then he starts asking me questions about stuff. I'm like, I don't even know how he found out about this, because there was no one else in the unit when this happened. He wasn't there. Like, I'm like, I don't even know how you know about this, but he's asking me all kind of questions. He asked me about the whole escape thing, which he actually knew about before I ever even showed him the charge for it. So I don't know how he learned about that either, but he knew about it. And he was like, okay, everything checks out. You don't got nothing weird on your paperwork. You haven't told on nobody, nothing like that. He's like, but since you're not Asian and you're technically still a white boy, you got to come catch this fade with the homie, and then you're in. I was like, all right, cool. Whatever. It is what it is. So I ended up fighting this dude, not him. It was somebody else. We were around. To be fair, he was fair about it. He didn't make me fight somebody who was like twice my size or nothing like that. The dude was this Cambodian dude. We were like the same age, same size, all that. And it wasn't even nothing too bad. We fought for maybe 30 seconds. There wasn't no clear winner. And then eventually he just ran up in there and was like, all right, it's enough. He's good. He's good. And so for months go by, and these are my people now. Like, after I fought the first guy who he made me fight, I go back. He told me to go get in the shower and clean myself up. because there wasn't no clear winner, but we both were bleeding. Like he was bleeding out of his nose, my eye was cut. It was we was both a little roughed up. So he told me to go get in the shower and clean myself up, so none of the COs would see what happened and start asking questions.